guest on Time Space Visualiser was the costume designer of Doctor Who between the Christmas invasion and the end of time, and was notably famous for having designed the costume for David Tennant's Doctor. Here to talk about that and her time behind the scenes on the show is Louise Page. Hi there, Louise. How are you?
I'm great, Jason. How are you?
I'm not too bad at all. Thanks very much. Fabulous to see you. It's really nice to get to talk to somebody who's, I think, had quite an impact on the modern series of Doctor Who. You did quite a number, in fact, quite pretty much all bar two of David's stories, if I'm correct.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, 45 episodes I did over 4 years, including the specials. So yeah, I mean, we double banked. That was the only reason. I think we in the series 2, 3, and 4 I did, and then the specials. And in series 2 we double banked, but I did both episodes, and that was fine. But it proved that the following year, when they wanted to double bank, it's so hard to do 2 episodes at the same time when you've got 2 units running in different places. And I just thought, this is mad, you know. And normally the double banked episode was one that would be very light on the Doctor. You know, it was normally a completely different story. So like the year that I double banked the first time, I think I was doing Love and Monsters and doing it was the James Strong ones, Age of Steel, those 2 episodes I think that were double banked. But the second year, you know, they were saying, oh, we're going to do Turn Left, but it'll be about Donna and the Doctor won't be in it hardly. And that was the whole point, because obviously they can't film in 2 places at once. So, and I thought, it's just too much. There's too much going on. So Ray Holman did Turn Left because, or Blink, I think it was one, or he did both of those anyway, but because he'd just finished Torchwood, so it made sense, you know. And I said, do you want to come and do that, you know, just to ease the pressure, because otherwise you're driving over Cardiff from 2 different places trying to keep 2 crews going, you know, separately, you know. And but yeah, so, but I mean, I started in 2005, and I think I finished filming in 2009, so my last episodes came out in 2010.
How did the opportunity to work on Doctor Who come about?
Well, very much like everybody's, which is that you know, normally your agent says, oh, they want to meet you for Doctor Who or for this or that and the other. Do you want to go for the meeting? So funnily enough, I knew that Doctor Who were doing their second series. It had just been commissioned, I think, and it had just been announced that Chris Eccleston was leaving. And then I got a phone call from my agent saying, oh, they've asked if you'll meet for Doctor Who. And I went, yeah, okay, fine. And obviously I was a bit reticent because it was Cardiff and I don't live in Cardiff. So obviously if you don't live locally, and it means, you know, you're going to be away for 9 or 10 months of the year or going backwards and forwards, that's quite a big commitment. But I'd always watched Doctor Who when I was a kid, but, you know, I kind of, you know, when you're a kid you think, wow, that's amazing, wouldn't you love to do costumes for Doctor Who? But that's it really. So but I went for the interview and I met Phil Collinson and we had the most brilliant meeting. It was lovely. Weirdly, I think I've got a note in my diary, I think this week is the 15th anniversary of me meeting Phil. Wow. And it was weird, but I always send him little texts saying, oh, it's 15 years here. And we just got on really, really well. But the day before that, my agent had said, oh, you know, for the meeting, I know it's a bit kind of late to say this, but can you bring with you, like normally you just take your portfolio with, and they said, oh, can you just, if you can think of any ideas for the new Doctor, that would be great. I was like, whoa, that's, you know, last minute. And suddenly I'm scrabbling together, trying to get bits of fabric and this, that, and the other, thinking, oh God, I just don't know. And, you know, so I got this thing together, which people have seen. I've taken it to a couple of, I think I took it to the LA convention and stuff like that. It's like my school project, you know. And I said to Phil, I've got this school project. He said, oh, have you got any ideas? And I was originally meant to meet him, Russell, and Judy Gardner, but I just met him. So yeah, and weirdly it turned out it was the first time he'd ever interviewed anyone on his own, which I didn't know at the time, but we were just chatting away and we got on very well. And then I came out, and the next one went in. I don't know how, they sell quite a lot of people. And then about a few days later, I got another call saying, you know, they want to meet you for a second time. So I went back. Oh, that's right. Phil just like said to me, can I borrow your school project? And actually, you're not meant to. I said, you know, legally, I think you're not allowed to, because obviously it's like intellectual property. You know, he could just take it and all my ideas and then, you know, give the job to someone else and go, thank you very much. And he said, oh, look, I promise I'll post it back to you, you know. And I said, well, listen, if I don't get the job, I'm not going to do anything with it, so fine, you know. Because I liked him and we got on, I think we just, you know. Anyway, I went back and he handed it back to me and said, I promised I'd give it back to you, you know, that was that. And I met Julie as well. And I think actually Russell didn't come down. I met Tracy Simpson, who was sort of the production manager at the time. And then I got the job, you know, and actually I didn't meet Russell till the first home meeting of the Christmas Invasion. And then that was only for a couple of minutes. It was so different, you know. Doctor Who now, I think, has become a much, much bigger beast, you know. Then it was like, you know, I remember going in the first home meeting and Millennium were there, and they obviously had done a year, so kind of were quite like, oh, we've done this and we've done this. And, you know, my first monster was the Sycorax, and it was very much stepping into the unknown. And then obviously there was the pressure with the new Doctor and David, and David was filming another job, so I had to go and see him in his lunch hour on this job in his trailer and show him my school project and have a chat with him, because he wasn't very available to come and do anything. And then I went off and saw stuff, and then we went out. I said, look, let's just go and have a feel and get to know each other. And we like went to Selfridges one morning for an hour on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock and just talked and wandered around. And he said, oh, I like things like this and things like that. And the suit thing came about very quickly. You know, I'd kind of had the suit thing in my school project, and he went, oh, I really love the idea of the suit, you know. And then it was kind of trying to find out what we really wanted to do. And then he went off and went back to filming, and then I went to Angels and pulled loads of different shapes and styles and silhouettes and stuff and fabrics and samples. And he said, oh, you know, he really wanted this long coat, you know. And so I got samples of that. So it was quite quick, you know, the whole thing. It was only a few weeks, and it was like, okay, I think the samples I pulled for the coat, we really quickly, it was like, okay, I've got this fabric I really like. I think it's great. There's 6 shades of brown, you know. Originally it was like, oh, I thought we were going to do greys and steel blues and things. And then it was like, well, actually I quite suit brown. And I went, okay, fine, let's do that. And you know, we picked a fabric quite quickly to do a sort of a mock-up version in. And then the suit, I had suit fabrics, and again we were talking about pinstripes, but the fabric that I had, they were suitings, they were too suity. And actually, it's common knowledge now that the fabric I ended up using for the Doctor's suit is a cotton, and it's made out of trousers. You know, I had all these pairs of trousers because I bought a pair of trousers for David to try on just as a shape, really, as a kind of, you know, as the style. And then he went, oh, you know, oh, a shame we can't just have them in this fabric. I went, you know, you cannot make suits out of these trousers. You know, this isn't, it's thin cotton. It's, you know, so thin. And I said, look, we'll try and find something similar. And then he came back to Angels for the next fitting. And I'd given the cutter there a real challenge, because the suit's in so many panels, and we only had the panels as wide as the trousers, because I'd said, let's just do an experiment, see what we can do if we open up pairs of trousers, which were all in the sale. And I was like desperately running around buying all these pairs of trousers, you know. And they went, you're mad, you know, this is just a mad thing. So, well, you know, we're not going to be able to get the fabric, so let's do an experiment. And when he came back, I said, look, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's try. Let's see if this is going to do it. And he's like, oh my God, this is great. I love it. So I was like, buy more trousers. You know, so it was endless. I mean, you can imagine, I mean, I wasn't popular, because rather than just bringing in a piece of fabric, you know, we were having to open up fabric and make fabric out of all these pairs of trousers. And then obviously to make jackets, to make suits. And the blue suit that we did later on, obviously that had its own challenges as well, because that was a light blue shirting, and we dyed it to this sort of indigo blue. And David, again, when we did that, he wasn't sure. He was on his holidays, and Russell said, oh God, we should have another suit. He said, oh, but can it be the same but different? I was like, well, the same but different means really kind of we could reverse a fabric, if I could find something. And Russell said, oh, well, okay, fine, let's get some samples and see, and show David at the tone meeting for the first episode. I said, you're only going to have 3 weeks if you want it, to have it for the new series, which was series 3, when Martha Jones started. So, and David was not sure at first. I showed him these samples where I said, look, we've found a fabric that's a similar lightweight cotton. It's shirting. We've dyed it. We've got all these different variations of blue. And he was like, oh, it seems a bit corny to have the same. But and Russell was like, well, I think this is a great idea. I said, well, if you don't do this, there's nothing else on offer now. This is, he'd been away on holiday, and this is what we've got. And he went, okay, give it a try. And then we made it, and he loved it. So, and we decided that the blue suit was his more, we tended to use the blue suit more for the contemporary episodes or for the futuristic episodes, and the brown we sort of had for more of the period episodes. But we tended to try then to alternate them, which we did. You could do that quite easily, because the episodes normally you'd shoot a period one and then a modern or a futuristic one, and then the coat we made up. And then Russell, I mean, in those days we didn't have FaceTime or anything like that, and I had a fitting with us. Now it'd be so much easier. Then I had this fitting, we took a photograph, I think we emailed it to Russell, and he said, oh, it still looks a bit wide. I said, well, you want it narrower? And he said, oh yes, let's have it narrower. And he said, oh, he'd be like a pencil, and then Phil had made a comment about the coat, and he said, oh, I think it's too long, maybe it should be 6 inches shorter. So, and again, it was a toile, and I was like, you sure about this? And he went, yes. And, obviously I didn't know Russell and Phil that well at the time. It was all so early on. So we shortened it by 6 inches, and we sent another picture, and then they went, oh, it's too short. So I was like, oh, okay, we've just cut 6 inches off this coat, and we were making 3 of them. But so then we sewed that back on and said, okay, that's for an emergency stunt thing, and now we'll have to make more. And Phil said, right, that's the last time I make a comment about something that I, because it was like, I shouldn't have said that. You were right to keep it that long. So yeah, and obviously it's become, I mean, people have copied it. I know that the suit's been a major discussion point for lots of fans all over the world, and I get comments, and then other people, there are certain cosplay players that have, even printed fabric. I mean, it's sort of flattering and mad all at the same time. They've kind of got companies in, China, I think it is, that have printed up that striped fabric. And I know that a few of the makers that have made copies of the coat, nobody's got an identical coat to David, and they never will, because that fabric I kept a secret as to what it was, and it's not available. Actually, they don't make it anymore. I mean, people have found things and they've made quite good, similar things, but no one except Doctor Who will ever have that same coat fabric.
And that's the thing. I think they have all the cosplay that you see. They're fantastic recreations, but by the feel of it, never will you get one that's the exact same from what you're saying.
Yeah.
I love the whole collaborative nature, I think, on how this, I mean, it's a fabulous story. And I love the whole collaborative nature of how you've worked with David. And some designers would be quite hesitant to allow that to happen, but it seems like you were more than happy to sort of have his feedback, and it was almost an organic development of the costume.
Actually, I would say I always do, whether it's whatever I do, even now, you know, on any show, on a contemporary show, if I'm shopping with an actor, I always, you know, you want their input. You know, they've got to wear it. They've got to feel really comfortable in it. And quite often on Doctor Who, on contemporary episodes, you know, they hadn't read scripts. You know, they don't even really know that much about their character. Sometimes all they've done is a tape of their audition, and that's it. And they don't know the backstory. They don't know what's going on. And I'm normally their first point of contact. So normally, apart from in Doctor Who's case, and sometimes now on other shows, you know, I'll ring up, and apart from, you know, their agent saying you've got the job, I'm the first person they speak to. So I'm the one that's taking them out and saying, okay, you know, this is the vision, this is the tone. You know, I normally, obviously, we've had a tone meeting in Doctor Who's case. You know, Russell has talked about the feel of the show, the feel of what it's meant to be about, and sometimes about the characters. I'll have spoken to the director, and I'll have gone through every character in the show in that piece and talked about what they feel that character should be, what they're trying to aim for. So I'm the one that's conveying that in a quick shopping trip down Oxford Street in some cases, as to say, well, you know, hey, we've got an hour, this is what we're trying to do here, you know, and they go, okay, fine. And you take it from there. You know, obviously if you're in a costume house, then you can pull a load more stuff together, but you know, that's of its period and you're more governed by a period piece. But if it's contemporary, then obviously, you know, in Doctor Who's case, Russell was very visual about colour and what sometimes he wants. You know, in the script, for example, there'd be like in the Christmas episode with Dervla Kerwin, you know, Mr. Hartigan, where she's walking through the snow, it says, you know, it's Victorian England, she's walking through the snow in a red dress. But for example, David Morrissey's character, who was the, you know, the doctor, that was an interesting one because he was Victorian and Russell was like, oh yes, I think it should be this, blah, 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 blah. But the casting was very late on David Morrissey. So I'd already had to buy all the fabrics, work out roughly what it was that we thought we were going to do. And I was waiting on the phone for a phone call to say who the actor was going to be, because we started shooting a week later and we had to make triple costume. And the costume house was saying to me, if you don't have a name by this afternoon, we can't make this for you, you know. And literally, David Morrissey was cast. I rang him. I think I got the phone call to say he'd been cast. 10 minutes later, I rang him. I said, can you get into Angels in 2 hours' time? And luckily, you know, he was the right side of town to be able to drive in, came in. I said, right, these are the fabrics. This is what we've bought. And obviously it's Victorian. These are the periods. Let's try on some, you know, period coats, get the feel for what we want, and then literally the workroom had to get on with it, you know. I mean, the same with Dervla. You know, I'd already had to buy the red silk. I'd already had to buy all the trimming. Dervla had never seen Doctor Who in her life. She didn't really know much about the character. They'd cast her, and I was like, right, I'm having to make boots for you. I've got the fabric, everything's ready, and I've got 2 weeks now to get all these dresses made. You know, so people think you have months and months and months, and you know, sometimes you have days.
And that sounds like a real challenge. We're going to take a break at this point, and thanks for your time so far, Louise. We'll conclude the second part of this fascinating chat with costume designer Louise Page in our next main Time Space Visualiser on Saturday.